NTSB member Todd Inman, thanks for sitting down with 7 News. Want to get your thoughts on the NTSB investigation process. I want to have a conversation about that, but first I want to ask you what your reaction is, your personal reaction is to the crash on January 29th that claimed the lives of 67 people.
It's heartbreaking. I mean, we are in charge of investigating these type of accidents, and I previously served at the U.S. Department of Transportation. You want to think that we've done everything that we could, and we've had such an amazing safety record. But to see that disrupted in this tragedy, it's gut-wrenching. And at the same time, you don't want it to happen again.
And what's your commitment to the people who may have lost, their lives, family and friends who knew people on that flight? What's your commitment to them and just the traveling public?
We're going to do everything we can to not only find out the probable cause, but the contributing factors, and then make recommendations so that this doesn't happen again. It's a long process, but we've been at it a long time, 58 years, 15,000 recommendations, 100,000 aviation accidents. We're going to see it through.
And what is the process of an investigation? Where do you start?
It's a massive undertaking. With 436 people, the NTSB is not a big agency, so we have to leverage a lot of outside partners and people that are very interested in this. And in aviation, everyone cares about not getting it wrong. So it's the entire industry comes together. We bring together industry experts. We look at it, all the different probable causes, and we do it in the public's eye. Ultimately, when the board meeting occurs, the public will see everything in regard to the investigative material we pulled together.
How long do you think it will take?
Preliminary report probably within 30 days. We could very well have an investigative hearing, and that would be 6 months to a year from now, and that would be in the public. And then probably at least a year, if not further. The key is not to go too quick, but to get it as accurate as possible, but at the same time, making sure the recommendations are there so we don't repeat the same thing again.
And I was going to ask you about the insights that people usually get from an NTSB investigation. What are those insights typically? What do recommendations usually look like?
Recommendations can be anything in regard to air traffic control, or to an operator, or to pilots, to the FAA for airspace. So it can run the gamut. But generally, it's a way to just improve safety. We found something that needs to be fixed. And luckily in aviation, over 58 years, we found a lot of things that needed to be fixed, and they've been adopted. There's still 300 open recommendations in aviation, so we're not done. But in this case, we need to get the really big ones and make sure that we try to make sure the traveling public is safe when we want them to get home at night. We're planning on, in the next 24 hours, probably tomorrow, releasing additional information, and some of that will be centered around not only the cockpit voice recorders, but the flight data recorders. The one thing I would make sure to let your audience know, we never release the actual audio of these. It's out of respect for those that were involved. These will be potentially transcripts or partial transcripts or reading of certain events based upon a group of individuals that have auditioned the tape, and it will help fill out some of that investigative questions that people have. Our job right now is not to solve this. It's to get the facts and get them into the public eye as appropriate, but it's to do the investigation.
For folks at home who might not be familiar with an NTSB investigation, is there something we haven't touched on yet that you would like people to know? Why it might take so long, for instance, to know exactly what happened?
These are very voluminous investigations, but the interesting part is we have to rule out everything that could have happened and then rule in what we think is the probable cause. We have hundreds of people working on this investigation. In fact, 350 years of experience just from the NTSB alone. I need them to know, if anything, it's been 24 years since we've had an accident in this same realm. We've got the experience, we know what we're doing, we're going to do it in the public eye, and rest assured, if we see anything that's urgent, we're going to recommend an immediate safety action.
I read in the Washington Post this morning, I don't know if you've seen this article, but the Washington Post reported that over the last decade there's been over 100 warnings to pilots that they could have been in a collision involving a helicopter over the last decade. What's your reaction to that?
So I try not to read and look at the press that much because we're based on the facts. I can tell you though, we've built a really robust reporting system. So the historical data is there. We've already began pulling it. We're looking at past incidents. We're looking at literally the people who handed off this plane to the RJ pilots in Wichita, what they ate, how long they slept. All that's going to be a part of the investigation. We may have had warning signs that were going on before. It's just we didn't know how bad it could be. That's the reason why we do the investigations.
Now, you used to work for the U.S. Department of Transportation.
We used to work together.
And so when I was going to ask you, what's your message to the public who might just be scared right now to fly after what they saw on January 29th? And I'm sure if I asked, potentially Secretary Sean Duffy that question, he would reassure people that the U.S. has a safe aviation system, period. You are here at the NTSB, the safety watchdog for the federal government. What's your message?
My message is we're going to do everything we can to reduce risk. Aviation in the United States is still the absolute safest mode of transportation. Have no doubt about it. My wife actually flew back from London 2 days after this accident. I had no concerns. I'll be flying out of DCA in the next few days myself on a probably RJ as well. I'm not concerned. We have amazing people that do really great work. In this case, it was a series of likely issues and probable cause, what we call contributing factors, that contributed to this. What we need to do is eliminate some of those contributing factors so it doesn't happen again.
I understand you're going to meet with some of the victims soon, or the families, I should say.
Part of my job was to meet with the families from not only the Black Hawk but the CRJ. I did that several times. I've been to several of their memorials. It is part of our role. They deserve that, and Congress mandates that transportation assistance is given to the families. So we have a very robust program. We have 8 people that work in that division. They handled over 340 fatalities last year, not counting this. So unfortunately, we've got a lot of experience.
Sir, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I know at some point the public is going to want a lot more answers and a lot quicker. We live in a new society of 24-hour news. Crimes are solved in a 1-hour TV show. We don't do it that way. We're considered the international gold standard for a reason. We take all the investigative material, and then we have a bipartisan independent board that votes in the public, and everyone can review our work. So trust us in regard to taking the time that we need.
Well, thank you for your time.
Sure.